And I just thinking it's really rude. And then I close the door and I look up and he's got no freaking ears and his eyes are twice as big, you know. And
wow, so he was saying that to you.
Yeah.
We often refer to a bunch of these things as angels. Angel is not what the thing is, it's what the thing does.
Hey, does anybody know what this is? What's going on here?
Can we hear that?
something is stopping it from locking on. And they think it was the craft.
So this guy goes on Joe Rogan and claims he's seen aliens, and then we're going to be looking at a video from Wes Huff talk about biblical angels, which maybe have a correlation.
Because that one's out there on the internet. You can pull down the video. There's a report that goes along with it. That
There's
shows,
a video that we can watch right now?
Right now, yeah.
I gotta
What would he
see
search?
this video.
You search for, let me think, Nellis Test Range UFO 1994.
Dun, dun, dun.
So
Who filmed this?
this was filmed by the operators on the range because we're putting these pilots in a risky situation by playing war with them, but we're training them. So if there is any kind of a mishap or a pilot or plane goes down, everything needs to be recorded. So they
This
have
is it right here?
Yes. So this video is being taken by one of these cameras that's up on the range. And along the bottom, you see that this is also trying to lock on to the craft so it can, follow it as it goes in and out, because this is the kind of way that you want to track if there's a craft that is having problems. And,
This is moving very erratically.
Right. So this is what the ranking guy saw.
Can I pause you for a second? This tracking, is this manual or is this like some
This
sort of an automated system?
It's an automated system.
So the automated system is having a hard time
Locking on
to it.
Yeah, if it locks on, you'll see a big spike, and that means that it finally locks on. Right now it's trying to, but something is stopping it from locking on, and they think it was the craft.
It's moving like crazy, side to side, all over.
There's actually a recording that goes with it where you hear the guys going, "Hey, does anybody know what this is? What's going on here?"
Can we hear that?
What in the world? So how do you know, though? What do you guys think? There's something there.
Okay, the sound is terrible.
Yeah.
They need better mics.
Honestly, that's
Do
the
we
way
have
it sounds when
podcast
you're
mics?
working up there. But
I'm
anyway,
sure, but he's saying, what is that? I don't know. We're having a hard time locking onto it.
Right.
Right. This is the video operator. So the following week after this happens, this video is taken. The ranking guy who had been there the week before and saw this thing flying, he takes us in this. When you go on the range through this one gate here, it goes up a little ways, and then there's a cantonment area. It's got a very small place where you can change your tires, get gas, just minor maintenance to get your butt home if you have a car that's busted. And then in the back of that cantonment area, there's two huts that look like campers, really, glorified campers. So the video operators are in the one that's off to the northeast of the cantonment, and in the very corner of it. And the ranking guy just says, we all have to go in here. We're going to go talk to the video operators. We have to do this. And this was because the week prior, everybody came back to garrison or back to our unit, and they had seen this thing, and they were all talking about this UFO. So we go in there, and there's the video operator. He has us all write our names down, whether we were there and saw it the first week or not. Then he makes us all sit down and watch that video. And he says, do you know what this is? And we're like, no. And then he just said, okay, thank you. And then we, after everybody that was there saw it and wrote their name down, we were allowed to leave. And that was all that was required. And,
Wow.
So I was like, well, what was that all about? But then as I'm exiting, this lady that had been sitting against the wall on the far part of this little hut that we were in, and she grabs my arm and she just says, there's somebody on the range, don't talk to him. And she was really, really freaked out. And I'm like, thanks, strange, freaky lady, got it. And I'm like, whatever. So we all hop out, we get in the vehicles, and then start taking off towards Quartz Mountain, because right at that cantonment area, there's a hard right. There's a hard right that goes off to Quartz Mountain. And about a mile, half a mile to a mile down that road, it's all dirt road up, by the way, there's this guy. It looks like he's wearing a uniform like we are. got battle dress uniform on. So he sees us and he starts to look like he's running, and he's got this really weird run, like his arms are kind of flailing behind him. It's like he was running against the hurricane wind, and it was like he was going to fall
Flailing
over at any
behind?
time. And I was like, yeah, it's a bit windy.
That makes me just think about like Men in Black or something, or a zombie. Yeah, this is all very interesting. Oh, I'd like to know what you guys think, but is this actually accurate? And we're going to be looking later about what Wes Heft thinks about the supernatural from a biblical perspective.
But it ain't that bad. So it looked really strange, and then I began to notice his skin tone looked like he might be hypothermic. And I'm thinking, oh, crap, this dude's been out here. It's freaking freezing out here, because it was a very cold day, and the wind was blowing. It was, those cold days where it didn't matter how many layers you had on. And so as we're getting closer, I'm talking to the ranking guy, hey, we need to slow down. So anyway, I'm thinking, this guy's probably in big trouble. I need to pull off my jacket. I need to give him something to get warm real quick. So I'm starting to do that, and we're approaching, and by the time I get my jacket most of the way off, he's right there at the corner of the front of the car. And
So he looks pale? Is that what you're saying?
he looked like an albino with a very bluish kind of undertone. If you could imagine,
So you're assuming like you're immediately associating that with like he's freezing.
yeah, because that's all I could equate it to.
Right.
And
So he's saying this guy's an alien?
as I'm starting to open my door to try to administer aid to this guy, the dude in the front passenger seat screams he's got no ears. And I thought that was pretty rude, because I was like, the guy's in trouble.
Does he have a hat on? Does he have?
He's got a hat on, and he's got BDUs that look absolutely clean, pristine. And when you're uprange, you do not wear your cleanest uniform. You're in a dirty environment. You wear your scuffed up boots. You don't take them with you.
So he's got clean battle dress uniform.
Everything. I'm
United
like,
States military.
Very out of
uniform
place.
on.
Yeah, it looks very out of place when I finally do it. But anyway, I step out onto the roadway, and this guy screams that he's got no ears. And I just thinking it's really rude. And then I close the door, and I look up, and he's got no freaking ears. And his eyes are twice as big. And I'm like, yeah, what the hell did I just walk into?
No way.
This guy's not from around
How
here.
far away from him are you?
Probably from me to
Just a few
Logan.
feet.
Yeah, just talking distance.
No way.
Okay.
And
That's
I'm
crazy.
starting to freak out. But then he starts to talk to me, and it's not my language, but it's coming to the understanding is like coming into my mind about every word he's saying. Because
So he's actually saying words,
he's saying words, but it doesn't sound like anything I've heard before.
but you're understanding what he's saying.
But I'm understanding. So I know there's a telepathic thing going on here, and it calms me down at the same time because I'm having to respond to him.
But this is crazy. This guy's literally saying he's had an encounter with an alien.
And he's like, hello, I'm having trouble with my craft. I need some repair material. Do you know where I could find some tritium? And
Wait.
this is what
I thought he said he couldn't understand his language.
he's talking to me about. And I'm like, you mean titanium? Because I didn't know anything about tritium at the time. But titanium, he's like, no, it's not it. And I'm like, well, at this point in my career, I had just left the program. So I knew where Dreamland was. And I pointed to the mountain range because you can see for days in the desert. But I pointed towards the mountain range and I said, Dreamland's just over there. And this wave of emotion hit me like disgust. Like, I am not going to talk to those barbarians and murderers. And
Wow. So he was saying that to you, like
Yeah.
his reaction to going to the military base was,
exactly. Yeah.
I was
But
not
he did
gonna
not
talk.
like it. He said, I am not going to talk to those people. And then I was like, well, shoot.
And it was barbarians and murderers?
He literally, that was what he called them, yes.
Wow.
And mentally, that's what it was. But the
Is this
emotion,
Tritium, is this a real thing?
well, that's what, I've had a lot of friends. There's analysts also that were on the top secret network that were trying to help me understand what material.
We were throwing everything at him.
Wow, so that's crazy. So now, guys, I'm going to be pulling up Wes Huff's video. So Wes Huff talks about biblically accurate angels.
Scripture occasionally refers to supernatural beings, like angels, like seraphim, like cherubim, like demons. But it doesn't really, or the Watchers is another one.
Jinn?
No,
That's different. That's
that's
Islam?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that comes
okay,
along.
yeah.
That's about 600 years after.
Beck Lover somewhere is like Julian.
Yeah, no, the jinn are a separate thing. That they're
Got it.
entirely. They're good and bad jinn. They're not even in this sort of category. But so you have these things mentioned in the Old Testament, but they're never really explained. And so within this 400-year period between the Old and the New Testament, the Jews are like, okay, what do we think of this? How are we to understand these supernatural beings that are created by God, that exist in some sort of parallel world in the unseen realm, and they're interacting with one another, and they have different forms and functions. So one of the issues is that we often refer to a bunch of these things as angels. Angel is not what the thing is, it's what the thing does. So malach in the Hebrew, or angelos in the Greek, means messenger. So it is not a description of its ontology, what it is, it's a description of what it does.
Got it.
These are supernatural beings who go and they communicate messages to people. They're in some sort of relation in terms of their supernaturalness to other creatures like the seraphim and like the cherubim, who are supernatural divine throne guardians. Which was a concept that was not foreign to the ancient world. You have Lamassu, which are the winged bulls with the human heads in Babylon, and you have sphinxes in Egyptian and Hellenistic culture. These were just concepts that existed within the ancient world. The gods have throne guardians. And within biblical Judaism, these are the seraphim and they are the cherubim. So sometimes you'll see those memes, the biblically accurate angels.
Yeah.
Those are cherubim. That's what they are.
Okay.
It's not actually an angel. It's kind of a misnomer.
I see. Biblical accurate angels, you know, like the ones with the eyes and they're all like popping and wheels going around. But yeah, that could be different than messengers as well.
Terms, but I get it because we kind of broad brush with all these categories. The Book of Enoch is part of the literature that's trying to explain that. What on earth is this? Actually, if you go back to my wesleyhuff.com, so every Monday I do these posts that I call Manuscript Monday. So if you go back to the homepage, click that, scroll down, you'll see the blog post. Keep going. Right there. So biblically accurate angels. So I actually explain some of these. If you go down, go up, right there. So like angels, seraphim, cherubim, and then how these are portrayed. And I particularly go through the manuscripts and how both Christian and Jewish interpretation of them reflects them differently. But these are these characters which the Book of Enoch is trying to make sense of, along with demons. And so the way that they go about that is by capitalizing on the events that happen immediately before Genesis chapter 6 and the biblical flood, where you have the great-grandfather of Noah, Enoch, as this character who is explaining some of these fallen angels or beings. Genesis chapter 6 says that the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were pleasing to the eyes and slept with them. And that these created men of renown. And that's the word Nephilim.
That's what Sean was just talking about. Genesis 6:4 says, the Nephilim were on the earth in those days and also afterwards, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown.
Ah, there it is.
So the trickiness of this is that in ancient Judaism, when it's translated in other languages, Nephilim is almost exclusively translated as giants. But the word etymologically in Hebrew, nephal, literally means to fall. So there's this whole narrative within ancient Judaism of these things are fallen angels. And so, but that's not the same thing necessarily in ancient Judaism as demons, and that's where it gets complicated.
Okay, so I'm just reading the background here so people have it. The Nephilim are mysterious beings or people in the Bible traditionally imagined as being of great size and strength. The origins of the Nephilim are disputed. Some, including the author of the Book of Enoch, view them as the offspring of fallen angels and humans. Others view them as descendants of Seth and Cain. The reference to them is Genesis 6:1-4. But the passage is ambiguous, and the identity of the Nephilim is disputed. According to the Numbers 13:33, 10 of the 12 spies report the existence of Nephilim in Canaan prior to the conquest by the Israelites. A similar or identical biblical Hebrew term read as Nephilim by some scholars, or as the word fallen by others, appears in the Ezekiel 32:27 and is also mentioned in the
Deuterocanonical.
Deuterocanonical books: Judith 16:6, Sirach 16:7, Baruch 3:26 to 28, and Wisdom 14:6.
Yeah, so let me read that for us. When men began to multiply on the face of the land, the daughters of them were born. The sons of God saw that the daughters of men were attractive, and they took as their wives any they chose. Then Yahweh said, My spirit shall not abide in man forever, for he is flesh. His days shall be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. These were mighty men who were of old, men of renown.
Wow.
So that's literally what the Hebrew says. And so it's not like the Wikipedia article accurately says, it's not entirely clear what's going on there. But Enoch is part of the Jewish conversation in trying to flesh this out. But, and particularly in the Book of the Watchers, which is the oldest book. And so that's what Enoch is. Now, part of the confusion about the Book of Enoch is because the Book of Enoch is never considered scripture by the Jews, but ends up in the Ethiopian Bible. And part of
Ethiopian Bible.
yeah, so the Ethiopian church has is like a wing of, you know, you have these different sort of overarching denominations of Christendom. You have today Protestants, Eastern Orthodox, Coptic, Roman Catholic, and then the Ethiopian church. And the Ethiopian church, we know that around the 4th century, missionaries from Syria went down to what then was referred to as the Kingdom of Aksum, which is in modern-day Ethiopia, and they brought with them a whole host of literature. And part of this literature was New Testament books in Greek and the Septuagint, the Greek translation of the Old Testament, which at that point was finalized. And the Ethiopian church took all of this literature, which included literature that nobody considered scripture at the time, and they appear to have just been non-discretionary and included everything. So all of the debates that were happening in the Latin West and the Greek East about what was and wasn't scripture, they looked at that and they said, we're not really interested in that. We'll just take everything. So in being non-discretionary, they end up just canonizing everything, which leaves them with a canon of scripture that is completely unique and includes books like Enoch, which the ancient Jews and every ancient Christian didn't, well, actually, I should preface that. There were a couple of early Christians who said, we think this could be scripture, but then they accept when, you know, all the debates happen that, okay, those are pretty good reasons we're not going to accept it in the end. And so I don't know where the idea came from.
But it's interesting, though, that maybe there's still some truth, though, to Enoch. I don't know. I need to read it. I haven't read it.
There is definitely a prevailing myth on the internet that the Ethiopian Bible is the oldest Bible. And that's not true. In fact, the oldest copy of the Ethiopian Bible, which is full in terms of a Genesis to Revelation copy, is 14th century. So it's a long, long time after. But there's a lot of talk online about Enoch, and particularly the copy of Enoch that is in the Ethiopian Bible, and that, oh, well, that's actually reflective of the original Bible because the Ethiopian Bible is the oldest. I don't know how that myth started. It's patently untrue.
So there you have it. That's his thoughts on angels. Who knows? They or demons also could be a form of aliens that people encounter somehow, and I think it's very interesting. I have a Patreon now. So if you guys want to support me in any type of way, you can check out the Patreon. I'm going to be doing Zoom calls every month to be able to communicate with you, and I'm going to be picking a video each week that you guys choose to post on YouTube, and so many much more. If you want to be able to contact me, or just if you want to support me in any type of way, Patreon could be a type of way to do that. So thank you for all the love and support. It means the world.